The New Age Cannabis podcast, it starts right now.
Right now?
Right now.
Right now?
Are you excited?
I'm so excited.
I am so excited.
Starting now?
Now?
Now.
Now.
Starting right now.
Let's do this.
Right now. Hello and welcome to the New Age Cannabis podcast, where we take a look at everything that's cannabis through an African perspective. Join us as we invite and welcome our guests, and we have discussions about cannabis and its endless possibilities.
Today, we are talking about cannabis, busting some myths, and talking about the future of the plant and where we see the plant in the African context.
This is our very first episode. My name is Aku. I'm not here alone. I'm here with my business partner and friend, Yao.
Thank you for the amazing introduction, Aku. It's fantastic to be here with you today. I'm looking forward to having a fantastic conversation and dispelling all the myths, as we mentioned before, around cannabis. But firstly, I want to ask, what brought you to the plant? What brought you to cannabis, and why have you taken it on your mantle to make sure that the world knows what cannabis is and what it actually really does?
Yao, let me tell you, I first got introduced to cannabis when I was on campus. A friend of mine handed me a space cookie, and she literally said, "Here, do you want a brownie? Have some." And I literally zoned out from main campus on the bus all the way to JCE, where was the female hostel. I was dizzy, the room was spinning, and I thought to myself, I'm never going to do this again. I know, it's hilarious. And I've got plenty of both. But it was only recently when I discovered that hemp, cannabis, can be made into bricks. And I'm from a construction background, and it just brought to me the attention that perhaps cannabis is the solution to Africa's problems. Cannabis can be used for so many different things. There's so many uses and applications that we have not even explored yet. And I think the time is now. Africa needs to accept, embrace cannabis and its capabilities. What brought you to the plant, Yao?
I'm not sure if mine has a fun beginning like yours, but I think the first time I dabbled in cannabis, I was in tertiary, and I think for the first 3 months of tertiary, I smoked weed a lot, and I just got really bored. It just didn't do anything for me, which now makes sense because back then, I didn't need any fixing. I was young, so all it did was just kind of put me to sleep. Then last year, when I went to Las Vegas and saw how developed the cannabis industry was in America, it gave me insight to what's coming here in South Africa. And it showed me the pathway to how to profitize off the coming industry to make sure that as it comes onto the continent, into Africa, we are at the forefront to make sure that we can use it as an economic tool to develop the continent. Because it's the first time that we've really gotten a foothold along with the rest of the world, who's also legalizing it now, to actually follow an economic path of prosperity at the same time. The more technological and the more, I guess I would say, the more technology we apply to how we go about implementing cannabis will give Africa a chance economically. So for me, that's why I've really been interested in the plant over the past year, I would say. I would say also from how I was introduced to cannabis and how you were introduced to cannabis, a lot of people only really understand the recreational aspect of cannabis, which is smoking. Whereas cannabis has a myriad of uses, which means a lot of uses. You can make the strongest ropes, you can make paper, you can make bags, you can make clothes, you can make straws, you can smoke it, you can eat it. You can use it to help you with cancer treatments. So it's got a very, very wide range of use. And one of the reasons it has such amazing capabilities is because each strain of cannabis is different. And a lot of people don't understand that each strain is different. So if I'm smoking a White Widow, if I'm smoking Durban Poison, if I'm smoking Spider's Chronic, no such thing, I just made it up. But whatever the case is, they're all different. They all have different properties and they all have a different cannabinoid makeup. Once you look at the fact that the plant is so versatile, you then get a better understanding of the application of the plant in different sectors and the fact that we can reach such a mass volume in terms of the growing and the consumption, whether it be recreational or commercial.
So why do you think it's so important that we have a discussion with people from the industry, not necessarily cannabis industry, but from the industries in their respective sectors?
For that, you'd have to look at the fact that the cannabis industry is a new industry. It has not been treated as a legal industry since the 1930s up until now. So what you're having is that you're having a completely new industry developing, which will need to then be plugged into the existing economy in order for us to benefit. So the faster that we can plug it into the existing economy in terms of logistics, supply chain, accounting, legal, etc., the sooner we can start to yield the benefits.
I think one very important aspect about our conversation is also removing the stigma and the taboo around cannabis. When I was having a discussion with a friend of mine last week, I told her that I'm exploring different avenues in cannabis. And she immediately said, "Oh, it's such a shame I don't smoke cannabis." And I was saying, but no, I'm not talking about smoking. There's so many different kinds of application. In this case, topical application in massage oil, in hand lotion, in different aspects in health and wellness, So we definitely need to remove the stigma and the taboo around cannabis. Immediately when someone says cannabis, they think, oh, a person getting high, which is definitely not the case.
You are quite right, Aku. It's unfortunate that the stigma has maintained itself over the past few decades, but cannabis is one of the most versatile plants that can be used for, as you've mentioned, a lot of wellness applications. It helps with depression, helps with anxiety, helps with pain. It helps with a lot of the modern day ailments that we face from consuming things, for example, like processed foods. I know on my side specifically, as my cannabis consumption increased, whether it be topical or ingested by smoking, my alcohol consumption has decreased. When I'm thirsty, I drink water. I'm using more herbs and spices, fresh herbs and spices in my food, thus making me healthier. So over and above the fact that the stigma is around smoking and there's very little understanding of the general public of what cannabis actually does, it's also actually to the detriment of society by not understanding, because we're actually having a more unhealthy society by not consuming cannabis the right way and not allowing it to be used in the way that it should be used and it has been used for the past 5,000 years.
Nice. So would you say that the aim of these podcasts is to create awareness, to create the conversation, to allow individuals who may not know what cannabis is, what cannabis uses are, to be informed?
Yes, information is key, because without information, there is no knowledge. Without knowledge, there is no power. So unfortunately, this podcast is needed in the industry to give people the right sort of information, not just, for lack of better wording, a bunch of stoners sitting around the table smoking weed and talking about weed. No, we're talking about cannabis. When you talk about cannabis, you're talking about sativa, you're talking about indica, you're talking about hemp, you're talking about the full application, the full use of the cannabis plant, which is in some circles known as the God plant. Why? Not only because it has a very similar genetic makeup to the human genome, which is why it works so well with our bodies, but also because of the numerous applications that can be achieved using the cannabis plant.
Today's competition is brought to you by Green Age Beauty, where you can win a cannabis-infused massage.
Body squeeze.
To enter the competition, all you need to do is subscribe, tag 2 friends, and leave a comment below telling us why you love this show. It's Cannabis Quiz time! So guys, Yao considers himself as a cannabis guru. So I'm going to pose to you some questions and you're going to try to answer them. You can play at home as well. All right.
I'm ready.
Question number 1. What is the origin story of 420?
420 originated in, I think it's Humboldt County, in the mid-90s in California, and that's the time that the students would leave school to go and smoke. And that's where the 420 movement came from.
Nice.
That's question number 1.
Question number 2. Which country in Europe can you go to and cannabis is literally in the air in some of the main cities?
Holland, so the capital is... Oh gosh. Netherlands. Oh wow, the city is completely escaping me. How? It's the Netherlands.
Nope.
No idea.
The answer is Italy.
Italy?
Yes.
Italy?
Italy.
Where in Italy?
I don't know.
Okay, it's Italy. Keep going. I'm ready for the next one.
Never been to Italy.
I'm 1 for 1. Let's go.
Question number 3. What was one of the first things sold over the internet? What year and by whom?
As in first cannabis thing? And by whom? That's hectic, but okay, I'll take a stab. I would say it was... That's a fantastically fascinating question. I think I would say it was sold on Amazon by Jeff Bezos, and it was a pipe.
Nope. Do you want to try again?
I will try again. It was Mark Zuckerberg. I'm just going. I don't know who sold weed on the internet. I don't know. Sold weed over the internet, the first person. Cannabis related. Huh. Justin Trudeau.
Okay, the answer is it was a bag of cannabis sold in 1971, sold between MIT and Stanford students.
Wow. So the first online drug transaction was in 1971 by varsity students. Awesome. Cool. Noted.
Okay, question number 4. What was the first recorded use of marijuana as a medical drug? By who? Double points for what it was used for.
Okay. Sorry, did you say medical? 1500s, and it was used for... It wasn't the flu. It was used for some common ailment. I think it was the flu. I'll go with the flu.
Nope.
Okay.
Try again.
2000 BC, it was used to cure leprosy, because that was a problem back then.
Close. It was actually 2737 BC by a Chinese emperor who was curing or was using cannabis to cure his rheumatism and his gout.
Wow, that's so fascinating. Because right now, one of the primary uses of cannabis is actually to control the effects of rheumatism and arthritis in the elderly. So quite fascinating. That's been used for over 3,000 years. Nice.
Question number 5. What confection product produces the same reaction in the brain as marijuana? I know you know this one.
I'll go with chocolate.
Well done.
So what score did I get, Aku?
You got 2.
Out of? No, that's not very guru-esque, is it?
Okay.
Any bonus questions?
Yeah, you got 2 out of 5, but you did well.
Bonus.
Well done.
Bonus question.
What bonus question do you want me to ask?
I can ask myself the question.
Okay.
What year did the South African Constitution change the law for cannabis to be used as a home personal space use product?
Great. Ask yourself
No,
that
I've asked
question. You're asking
I'm
me.
asking the question.
That was 20. Yeah? This it was recent. Yeah, I wanted to
So
say
when was
20
it?
and
Is that the
he's
answer?
going,
It was
no.
recent. I didn't say no.
2018, 2019, 2020? Can't be
17.
2017.
I might be wrong, to be honest, but okay. So somewhere like 2017, 16, but yeah. Let me ask you, where do you see the cannabis future within the African context, within the African perspective, in the next 5 to 10 years? What do you see happening?
What I'd like to see happen is that more people are having open conversations about cannabis. That small farmers can plant marijuana for their personal use, to build their homes, to be able to build, to create clothing, even to create shopping bags or plastic bags. I'd like to see the whole of Africa be removed from its poverty through cannabis.
That's a very, very ambitious and very, 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 very possible thing, fortunately, with the type of product that cannabis is, and with the current status. If you look across Africa between Uganda, Ghana, Rwanda, South Africa, and where we are legislatively, that looks like a very good possibility in the next 5 to 10 years.
And I think it does take political will. If we can have open, honest, adult conversations, remove the taboo and the stigma behind some of these products, I definitely see a bright future for Africa. We've got the land, we've got the manpower, we've got the resources, so why not?
Very true.
So Yao, how do you see the industry trends?
In terms of industry trends, from what you mentioned, all of that is very likely, but where the key is to intersect between the existing economy and the new economy and the digital economy. Because strangely enough, right now, the current situation is one that's, for lack of better wording, very rare to find us moving into the fourth industrial revolution and the digital economy, whilst getting the new industry of cannabis. So as much as Africa is very, very labor intense in terms of how it executes anything in an economy, right now we're giving the opportunity where we've got an economy that's failing. We've got tons and tons and tons of jobless graduates running around. How do we take them, and at least half that number, I would say half that number, by adequately accessing the cannabis industry with all the capabilities and efficiencies of the digital economy? Because once you intersect those two, you then put Africa on a pathway to actually being prosperous within itself, not just relying on Europe or America or South America or Australia or China or anywhere outside of the continent. So if we look at the trends of the current growth rates of the cannabis industry in the States, where they've only got, I think, about 10 or 12 states that have it legalized for either medical or recreational consumption, you've got an annual growth rate of over 125%. Coupled with a failing industry like, say, not failing, but a low growth rate industry like the hair care market, where you're looking at about 5%, combining those two means that if you come up with some solution that works in that industry, you're looking at least a 35% growth rate simply by adding cannabis to your product line or to the way you make your products. So the trend would be adding cannabis as part of an overall service offering across all sectors, whether it be manufacturing, food production. I would even go as far as education, but bringing cannabis efficiently to all sectors that are currently, I would say, struggling within Africa is where we would most likely yield the best benefit.
Wow, it seems like Africa's future looks very bright.
Very green.
Can you bust some cannabis myths for us?
I think the myth I would like to bust is that cannabis elicits hallucination. Cannabis is not a psychedelic. It has psychoactive properties, sure, but it's not a psychedelic. Psychedelics are things like mushrooms, PCP, and I'm pretty sure I'm mentioning a lot of drugs that some people might not be familiar with, but things like acid as well, where when you consume it, you genuinely start to see things differently, different colors, you hear voices, you see people that aren't there, but cannabis does not do that. What cannabis does is it simply allows your CB receptors, which is basically some nervous system receptors within the body, to be more efficient, which means that you're going to have a heightened sense of things. Therefore, you'll hear more, see more, feel more, but you're not going to hallucinate. And that's one of the myths around cannabis, is that it makes you see things. It doesn't. It just makes you more active and alert.
Right. So going back to my introduction of cannabis, when I did have that space cookie, the room was spinning. I could hear things, like perhaps it was more of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Not a hallucination, but more like, are people talking about me, right? And my hearing was heightened. So I can believe that what you're saying, that your endocannabinoids are heightened and you experience different things. So one would describe that as their sense of being high.
So on that, what's interesting and what a lot of people don't factor in is that, like anything, you can to some extent overconsume. But what happens with essentially the endocannabinoid system is that if you consume too much, your receptors become flooded. So now you're just oversensitive to everything, which basically creates disorientation, which is why you have to consume it the right way in the right quantities and not just, I wouldn't say don't smoke the whole day, but obviously if you take a very, very high dose of cannabis that contains, whether it be THC, CBD, or any of the other cannabinoids, you will have some effect because your system has been flooded with a specific substance, one way or the other, or your system is heightened, similar to a sugar rush. I know, for example, if I'm hungry and I have a can of Coke, I get intense sugar rushes. It's crazy. Similar to cannabis, if you have too much, you will experience an overheightening, which can be somewhat disabling and disorientating. So once again, it's not hallucinations, it's just simply your system being overactive because of the cannabis.
Right. Thank you for that myth bust.
Myth busted.
About cannabis with THC, not the medical.
Medical cannabis is very specific. So medical cannabis has been grown within a controlled environment with a specific purpose. So that's why, and I think if we go back to trends, that's why if you look at Canada, what Canada is doing is that they are creating a ton of greenhouses and a manufacturing process procedure or standard that can't really be met in Africa, because medical cannabis says, I need this specific strain grown this specific way. Whereas in Africa, we grow in the field. We don't really care. So the trend for Africa is not to go the medical cannabis route, because we're not really gonna compete with the Canadians where it's icy and they need greenhouses, which are high capex, because we don't have the money for that. So making sure that we can sort of use the fertility of Africa and the sun to grow, but still yield the same, not the same quality, but quality that's good enough, not medical, but for everything else, is where Africa really needs to place itself. Whereas right now, if you're looking at the sorts of licenses that are being granted across the continent, it's mostly for medical consumption, which means shipping to Europe, because they're the ones who are really doing the pharmaceutical testing and those sorts of things. We're not really doing that here because we don't have any real big pharmaceuticals. So essentially, the current market is fooling Africa to thinking that the medical is the way to go, but medical doesn't work for this continent. So we need to find a solution, and we need to find a supply channel that works for this continent, not working off a European or American model, because that's how we'll then fall behind very quickly, is if we follow their model of going to put up all these expensive greenhouses that we can't afford and sell to them to sell to us, as we've been doing for years with clothes and everything else. So the key is to make sure that we find the African solution for something that basically grows here very well naturally and doesn't in a lot of places that actually consume it, like Europe and Canada, America, if you're looking at the northern parts. Although with that said, it was recently discovered that cannabis is likely to have come from the Himalayas, which stands to reason because it likes light, but it can still survive in cold or the heat, and it's more about the light. And it doesn't need that much oxygen because it's from the Himalayas. That's still under debate, but they haven't really identified the origin of cannabis.
Thank you all for joining us for today's episode, our very first episode. I certainly had fun.
I had an amazing time. Thank you so much, Aku.
Thank you, Yao. I hope you also at home and listeners enjoyed the conversation. We have a jam-packed season ahead where we will be discussing a lot of topics such as pain management, cancer, and beauty and wellness. So be sure to tune in. Remember to enter our competition where you can stand a chance to win a cannabis-infused massage brought to you by Green Age Beauty.
Don't forget to subscribe to our social media channels for more updates and information about anything cannabis. And listen to all our shows. They're all amazing. Trust me.